Excellent. Oh, and we have Desta today.
Desta's very interesting. What, that's, these are all very interesting things, but our group has attracted many very gifted people, and very unique experiences from, I refer to it as kindergarten all the way up to university professors in the genre that we dabble in.
Right on. Okay, I guess then we shall begin. We respect Michael's time. So I just want to start out, everyone, thanking you all for making some time on your Saturday to be with us, especially for our guest who's given up some family time of his own to be here with us. Before we begin our formal presentation, I just want to make our land acknowledgement statement. In keeping with the principles of Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Report, the Winnipeg Experiencers Meetup Group wishes to acknowledge that the land this broadcast originates from is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwa Cree, Dakota, Sioux, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis people. So this afternoon, Saturday, September the 11th, 2021, we have Mark Olson being our host for this afternoon, and with our very special guest, Canadian constitutional lawyer, Mr. Michael Swindon. So Mark, if you'll be so kind to introduce our guest and take it away, folks. Thank you.
Absolutely, Brad. Well, welcome everyone, and hopefully we have the kind of meeting I think this is going to be. These are something sometimes you look forward to meetings more so than others, but this one I'm very much looking forward, and it's very apropos that today is September 11th, a day 20-year anniversary of September 11th, which is a day that the Earth changed at this point, and currently in another change as we go along in this path that we're on. Our very special guest today is Michael Swindon, as you said, Brad. He's a Canadian constitutional lawyer. He's an experiencer of native elders through North and South America, and defenders of others, which is something that our world is in need of. And obviously the connection between constitutional lawyers and defending of others is probably never been a more important time for that situation to be taking place. Welcome, Michael, and thank you again for joining us today, because we know how important and valuable your time is.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And no, it's not a big sacrifice to give up time, speak to like-minded people, and share ideas, because it's what will launch us ahead.
Yes, exactly. Michael, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about if you could just sort of spend a little bit of time talking about yourself and sort of describe. And we're going to get into it in greater length, but a little bit about yourself to start with, so people can pick up on a little bit about you.
Sure. It's very helpful, because my life since 28 years ago, I guess, has been a magical mystery tour. I met my present partner, Susan Hagar, 28 years ago, and together we have 2 children. I have 3 children from a first marriage, so I have a total of 5 children. And 28 years ago, I had an epiphany, which essentially launched me off the materialism path and placed me on the red road spiritual path. And it was actually a book written by Barbara Marciniak, The Bringers of the Dawn. And in the book, that said, if you're interested in Buddhism, you should check out native spirituality. And I had already canvassed all religions just because I was really interested. I studied Hinduism, I studied Muslim. I was raised Roman Catholic, so I know the Christian thing. And Buddhism became very, very attractive to me, and that as a result of that line, I dove into native spirituality. And I became struck by this concept of wisdom keepers. and that what that actually, what did that really mean? What is the wisdom keeper? In 1994, well, actually, I'll go back a little bit. In 1993, just from a conversation in the courthouse in downtown Ottawa, this person said to me, why is it that you know so much about Native spirituality? And I said, well, it's simply because I'm interested and, I studied it, etc. And he said, well, we really need someone to place us in consciousness as to the core of the indigenous culture. And it appears to us that we have Apple Indians advising us. I said, and what? And he said, red on the outside, white on the inside. And so what he was really talking about was compromised individuals, right? Who were feeding them what they wanted to hear, not what was the true story. And that conversation went on to the point where he was saying, well, how do I know about the core of the culture of the indigenous people? And I said, well, it's the wisdom keepers. It's the grandmothers and the grandfathers and the shamans of the indigenous tribes that you will learn the core principles of indigenosity. And he said, well, where are they? And I said, well, they're all over North and South America. He said, well, who am I going to find to go talk to them? And I said, me. And we established a contract. I knew one indigenous person at the time. I am not kidding you. I knew one indigenous person at the time. That following weekend, with my present wife, we met a man from her high school days, downtown Ottawa. Chit chat. Oh yeah, doing this program with elders. Oh yeah, do you know William Commanda? He said. I said, no, I don't know William Commanda. And that weekend, I met William Commanda with my wife Susan and our 20-day-old daughter, and walked with him until he passed in 2011. So in 1993, I was given a spiritual leader of the Algonquin Nation as my guide and mentor. And I asked the people who were going to finance me to interview elders, will they finance the elder? And they said, yes, we will. And so together with his sacred firekeeper, my wife and Susan and I and Allura interviewed Native elders all over North and South America. Mayans, Incas, Hopi, Lakota. I mean, the list just goes on, east, west, north, south. And we were exposed to some just incredible wisdom keepers, and I could talk about that all day, but I'll move on. In 1994, I read an article, and it was entitled The Awakening. And in that article, it was about 4 pages. For me, it represented 16 years of spiritual study, encapsulated in 4 pages. And I was completely blown away. And I looked up at the top of the page, and it said, Willaru Waita, Cusco, Peru. And I made a vow right then and there that I would meet this man. And this is integral to the story so that you know what I'm telling you is I was blessed, and what was put on our path were 2 incredible elders. And one represented the eagle and the other represented the condor. And the fact that we were given the path to walk with the eagle and the condor gives me goosebumps as I say it. Willaru Waita's article in The Awakening was his position was, we are all worshipers of the sun. The sacred fire tended by the native people is a representation of the sun, the life giver. And when we make our relationship between the sun and the Mother Earth, we must begin to learn the cosmic dance steps. And we sometimes fail to understand this incredible relationship. Now I'm going to tell you about, just to establish the point, with grandfather William Commanda and with Willaru, between the years 1998 and I'm going to say 2005, we attended 3 eagle and condor ceremonies. where the eagle feather and the condor feather were exchanged between Willaru from Cusco and William from Maniwaki, Quebec. Just so that we understand that that relates to prophecy, and it relates to the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. And that prophecy, in essence, is what indigenous people live with. These are their guides. They understand the world and its their relationship to it through the prophecies that have been handed down over. I was particularly taken with the white buffalo calf prophecy during my 5 years with Wisdom Keepers. And so I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of the white buffalo calf prophecy. And it is said that 19 generations ago, white buffalo calf woman, a spiritual woman, came to the Lakota people. And she brought to them the spiritual teachings that were represented in the pipe. And the bowl represents the feminine energy, and the stem represents the male energy. And the combination of the male and the female energy gives you the prayer to the divine, the smoke. It's much more elaborate than that, but I just wanted to give you the little aspect of the pipe being a very deep spiritual teaching for the Native people. And I could go on for a long time about that, but again, I'll move on. And so after she gave them the spiritual teaching, she said, I'm now going to give you a prophecy. And this is the prophecy. You will know the changing times are upon you when there is born a white buffalo calf. You will know it is the white buffalo calf of the prophecy, because on the date of its birth, the father will die, evidencing the death of the patriarchal system and the rebirth of the matriarchal system. You will know it as the white buffalo calf of this prophecy, because after its birth, it will change all colors of humanity and then go back to white. On August the 20th, 1994, in Janesville, Wisconsin, was born a white buffalo calf. The father died on the day of its birth from a brain aneurysm. The white buffalo calf subsequently changed colors of humanity, all four, and went back to white. They named the white buffalo calf Miracle. And 10 years in, it escaped its enclosure, and the police shot it dead because they thought it was a danger. The white buffalo calf prophecy is essentially what we're in now. We're in the white buffalo calf prophecy. Today, Arvol, A-R-V-O-L, Arvol Looking Horse of the Lakota people, carries that 19 generation pipe and has his own white buffalo calf society. And so you can all access it online, and you can be current with Arvol Looking Horse and the white buffalo calf prophecy. I chose as a cover for the report that I made on our interview with Native elders, the white buffalo calf woman holding the pipe in her hands, and then in the clouds above her was the white buffalo calf. So the eagle and the condor is the prophecy that basically said, you know, changing times are upon you when the eagle and the condor exchange their teachings. And that's why I told you about the 3 ceremonies that I attended. So I'm telling you that you're living in the time of prophecy. What I chose to do, for instance, in my report was say, if you want to know everything about what you need to know about the indigenous, then you need to know it through consciousness. And consciousness from this perspective, that in essence, the dominant society is left-brained, logic, math, science, etc. The indigenous society is right-brained, ceremony, magic, dance. When we have symbiosis, in other words, left and right operating properly together in synchronicity, we have exactly that, synchronicity, the synergy of synchronicity. But when we have this, which is one dominating the other, we have dysfunction. And this is the dysfunction that we've been operating under in terms of consciousness. I also told in this report, the idea is the consciousness that we need to sort of enmesh in ourselves comes with relationship to the cosmos, relationship to the sun and the Mother Earth and the moon, and our relationship to a cosmic undertaking, not just a planetary one, because we live in a teeming cosmos of incredible existence. And yet we are so arrogant that we walk around thinking that we're the only deal in town. And it's unfortunate, very unfortunate. But I now have to tell you the story of my mentor and teacher in Cusco, Peru, Willaru Waita, because it is in knowing and being with him that my own family's consciousness was raised extensively through the Inca teachings. Now, my teacher, when he was 35 years of age, he's now in his early 70s, and we still work with him on a weekly basis. So what we did to, excuse me, this is him recounting to me exactly what happened to him. He's about 35 years of age at the time, and he's sitting in a bar drinking beer with a bunch of fellows, and he says to himself, there has to be more to life than this. And his two burning questions were, are there such things as ascended masters? And are there such things as crystal cities in the inner earth? And so he embarked upon what he considered to be an Amazon walkabout. He just put on a backpack and he went into the Amazon, specifically looking for indigenous tribes that he thought would be knowledgeable about these things. And so he'd go to this tribe, no, this tribe, no, this tribe, no, and yes. And when he got the yes, they basically said, sorry for the background, that's a... Wow, that's a low flying plane. That's all I want to say. Low flying plane.
Oh, I was wondering what that was, Michael.
Yeah, it's a low flying plane. It's just to alert us all to what's coming. That's all. Just to alert us all as to what's coming. So when he got the yes, they said to him, well, yes, these things exist, but you're not ready. In order for you to be able to answer your questions, you would need to be initiated. And if you're willing to stay here, we'll initiate you. And of course, he said, well, that's why I'm here. So off he went. And this is what he told me. He said, Michael, you should understand that one of the very first things they taught me was that the commandment, honor thy father and thy mother, had nothing to do with your biological father and mother. It had everything to do with this father, which is your third eye, and this mother, which is your heart. And the father, mother exists in every human being. And as they said, the story of the prodigal son and daughter, it's not about what you think it is. What it's about is a human being leaving the temple, the inner temple of their own father and mother, and going out into the material world and thinking that they're going to achieve happiness and riches in the material world, and are saddened to find out that they're not fulfilled. But when they return to the mansion, they find that their father and their mother never left them. And so where we're at as humanity is we have forgotten this relationship. We do not honor our father and our mother. The Inca had an expression of greeting, which was Wiracocha. They put their hand on their heart and they go, Wiracocha, from the divine in me to the divine in you. So he said that this was the most important thing to learn, because it would establish that you were leaving the vibration of fear and you were embarking on the vibration of love. And so this transition that had to be achieved through mental and emotional discipline, emotional body discipline, was achieved through meditation, ceremony, practices. But as he said to me, the most critical features were getting into relationship with my father and my mother. So he said, after a year and a half, they said to him, you're ready. We're going to take you deeper into the jungle. And there you will find the answers to your questions because of what we've taught you, because of what we've shown you. And said they brought him deeper in the jungle and they just left him there by himself. And he said when he was sitting there, he was there for 3 days in prayer and meditation. And all around him were wild boars, man-eating snakes, just dangerous animals. But they just were circling. They never came near him. And he said, you know why? He said, Michael, because I was with my father and my mother, I was in love. I had no fear. So they didn't come near me. After these 3 days of prayer and meditation, he suddenly saw an opening in the jungle he had not seen before. He got up, went to look, and there was an enormous cave. So he went in the cave, and he said he walked and walked and walked and walked. And then he came upon a 15-foot black man, a Lemurian. And the Lemurian and he communicated telepathically. And the Lemurian offered him an ear of corn made of solid gold and turned further in the cave and pointed. And Willaroo, off he went. And he said, again, I walked and walked and walked and walked. And then he said, I came upon a table up against a wall. And he knew to put that ear of corn on the table. And when he did, the wall parted. And in he went to the 4th dimension, to crystal cities existing in the inner earth, where he was taught by the ascended masters. And so what they said to him is, we want you to be a chasqui, a spiritual messenger. Today on his passport, he's identified as a chasqui. Not many people you know are identified on their passport as a spiritual messenger, but he truly is. And they said to him, we want you to go, first of all, they said, we want you to cut your hair. We want you to get rid of your poncho. We want you to get rid of all the accoutrements. We want you to look as normal as you can look, because we want you among the people, because this is the place of initiation among the people. And then they told him, we want you to go to Machu Picchu, and we want you to meditate there for 2 years. So not many people have that kind of discipline. And so he went to Machu Picchu, and he made a deal with the guards that when the tourists left at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he would go in and he would exit at 7 in the morning for 2 years. And there he received visions, visitations, you name it. Now I'm going to show you how incredible this is, because I read that article in 1994. The story I just told you about his experience was when he was 35. I only met him for the first time in 1998, when we were given a budget to bring in elders from all over. We brought them into Ottawa, in behind the Supreme Court of Canada. We had an 8-day vision quest that was on, but we had Hopi, Lakota, Inca, Mayan. It was unbelievable, unbelievable. And then the first day was the passing of the feather for a prayer. And I had just picked Willaroo up at the airport. I hadn't had 2 minutes to talk to him. He was in the circle, I was in the circle. When the feather came to me, I said this prayer. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men, let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men, may Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. I got that prayer from Alice Bailey books. It was in her, it was in there. You were given a little blue sheet, and of course, as you can see, I memorized it. Because daily, sometimes, many times. And when we finished the prayer circle, Willaroo came over to me. And he's the most humble man. You can hardly hear him speak. He leaned in and he said, "Oh, where did you learn that prayer? And I said, oh, arrogantly, I learned that prayer from Alice Bailey books, like, you know. And he looked at me and said, oh, I learned that prayer from the masters. So what? I said, so what? And the difference between book knowledge and oral tradition got exposed to me in a big way. All the scales came off my eyes. I was transformed by those words in one sentence. He introduced me to the other. Just like that. So we've been working with Willaroo since 1998, full on. We have a place in the Sacred Valley. We want to create Mystery School and revive Mystery School, because that's really what this is about in Peru. And so I'm going to give everyone the Reader's Digest version of the Inca teachings, which my teacher has given to me. And it's like this. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Inca cross, but an Inca cross it's flat on the top, and then it goes down, and then across, down, and then across, and then down, all the way around the cross. So 3, 6, 9, 12 steps, if you will, but really predominantly 3 steps. And so it's said that the Inca masters said to humanity, for the raising of consciousness, you need to establish 3 steps. The first step is the elimination of the egos. And the egos we find in the cardinal sins of the Christian faith: lust, anger, pride, envy, greed, laziness, and gluttony. And every one of us as human beings are invaded by these egos. And the teacher said, when you want to know and observe how this works, assign an animal to those 7 egos so that you can see how you feed the animal. So for the lust, the animal is the black dog. It's only interested in smelling the sex. It just goes there right away. Anger is the bull. Pride is the peacock. Envy is a seagull. It'll take your French fries. And laziness is a monkey in South America called the puño puño. So lazy, can hardly peel the banana to feed itself. And greed and gluttony are taken by the pig. So 6 animals, 7 egos. And the teacher says, if you really want to understand this at a more deep level, then come to understand this through the eyes of a man, because men's karma is heavier than women, because women's intuition puts them ahead. They're ahead of men in terms of karma. We're heavier with our karma. So it's, when we're talking the egos, it's a little easier because we display them better than women. But that's not such a good thing. So imagine a man walking down the beach and he sees a beautiful woman in a bikini. The black dog comes out, lust. He doesn't think of her as being a goddess. He doesn't see her as being a completion of his own spiritual journey. He only has the black dog in mind. He goes further down the beach and somebody says, you bastard, you owe me money. And the black dog retreats and the anger bull comes out. And you go further down the beach and somebody says, you're the best person that ever walked the face of the earth. And that other animal retreats and out comes the peacock. And on and on and on. And so with our mental, emotional bodies, we feed the egos. We need to become observers of self to begin to see how we feed those egos. How do I feed the lust ego? How do I feed the anger? How do I feed all those things? And the teacher says, yes, but if you want to do that, if you want to be an observer of self and you want to eliminate, you can't do it by yourself. You need your father and your mother. Because if you honor your father and your mother, you'll be honoring the divinity of self. You'll be honoring the divine within you. So this is in essence, the help that is given to all of us is the father in wisdom and the mother in. They will always answer any question you have in wisdom and love. The symbol for the raising of consciousness in the elimination of the egos was a crystal skull, because the initiate would carry the crystal skull around to remind them to put to death the egos. Where you're going to find a lot of what I'm speaking to you about is in books by Samael Aun Weor. So that's Samael. Aun is Aun, and Weor is Weor. He's written about 30 books. He founded the International Gnostic Association, and he came from a tribe, in my estimation, that we have in Santa Marta region in the Andes in Colombia, where the Kogi live. Now, these are a tribe that you really want to know about. The Kogi, Kogi. And when you check out the Kogi, you'll see films that have been done on them. One called The Kogi by the BBC, one called Le Chemin des Neuf Mondes, The Way of the Nine Worlds, and then a subsequent third one. And I can't remember the third, but of course, when you hit the Kogi, you'll get to see that there are 3 films on them. So the Kogi, they live, the elders are called mamas. You hear that? Mamas. They're kind of advanced. And the mamas are at about 17,000 feet on the mountain range. And you or I, we would not be able to be with them because our vibration is too low and their vibration is too high. So they have 3 tribes below them who essentially are protectors and interpreters. So the normal world, them. So they refer to themselves as the elder brothers and refer to us as the younger brothers. Excuse me. And the purpose of their first film was to speak to humanity and say to them, you can't continue to do this. You're desecrating the Mother Earth. You're taking all of her resources and you're putting us all in danger by virtue of your greediness and your selfishness. And that was their basic message. But it was also to show the world how they walk, and they walk spiritually on a daily basis. Everything that they do is a spiritual undertaking, if you will. And I think they dedicate their whole year, except for 2 weeks. In 1 2-week period, they have one hell of a party, and then they go back to being like really on it, right? And it's a pretty good idea. Anyway, the Kogi are very advanced, and we all should know they exist with us right now. I had someone, an elder, who was able to visit the Kogi, but he couldn't go beyond the 3rd level. He had to stay at the 3rd level, and they had to send runners up. And he couldn't sleep. They had given him a thatched hut to sleep in. He couldn't sleep in it, and decided he wanted to sleep under the stars. And so he went out, and it was just, you know, incredible stars. After 3 nights, he couldn't take it anymore. And he went to one of the messengers and he said, listen, you have to tell me what's going on. He said, every night, 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I see these colored lights coming and hitting the top of the mountain. He said, you got to tell me what that is. So he said, okay, we'll send the messenger up. Messenger goes up, comes back down, says, well, what was that? He said, oh, the elders told me to tell you that's them coming back from Mars, Jupiter, Venus. Oh, okay, thanks. So the level at which the Kogi are at are beyond, and they live on the physical earth with us. So let's go into what the Incas say. I gave you the first step. I'll come back to the second and third in a moment, but let's just put it in context about what the Incas say about what we're in, because the Incas say that what we're in, this is the second solar system, the second experiment to see if humanity can spiritualize. The first solar system, the moon, was the earth, and the moon is now a dead planet because they failed. Humanity did not spiritualize, because each solar system has 7 solar races. So on that first solar system, they went through 7 solar races, and at the end, the 7th solar race failed. And the teachers say that that's where the egos come from. that the egos come from the moon and that last civilization and invaded humanity. The second solar system is us, and we're 7 solar races. The first 2 were inside the Mother Earth because we were born in the womb of the mother. So the first 2 were Hyperborean and Adamic. And there comes the story of Adam and Eve leaving paradise because we asked to come out onto the surface of the earth. We left the 4th dimension and we went to the 3rd dimension. And in the 3rd solar race, that was Lemuria, the land of Mu. And the Lemurians were like 16, 17 feet tall. They were giant human beings. You can go throughout South America and you'll see all sorts of temple sites where the steps are made for 16, 18-foot people, not 6-foot people. And the remnant, and that civilization rose to a height, and then it degraded because of black magic versus white magic. And the Mother Earth put it into the ocean and destroyed all of that. And the remnants are Hawaii, Easter Island, you know, those statues in Easter Island with the elongated necks. Well, that's a representation of what I'm speaking about, and left in plain sight for humanity to know. Then the 4th solar race was Atlantis, and the same thing happened, rose to a height, black magic versus white magic, and that got dumped into the Atlantic. And of course, the remnants here are Bermuda and the United Kingdom and Greece. That's how big the continent was. The 5th solar race is us. And we are the first Hyperborean, Adamic, Lemurian, Atlantean, and we're known as Aries or Aryan, which is from the constellation Aries, not Hitler's Aryan, but Aries constellation. And in 26,000 years, there's 4 seasons. There's a golden age, there's a silver age, there's a bronze age, there's an iron age. And where we're at as the 5th solar race is we are leaving the Iron Age. In fact, we left it February 4th, 1962 at 3 p.m. when we went into Aquarius. And when we went into Aquarius, we were signaling the end of the Iron Age and the closing of the cycle for the 5th solar race. And what we are the midwife of the 6th solar race. We're here to midwife the seeds of the 6th solar race, which represent your children and grandchildren. And so we're here to shepherd them into safety at the close of the 5th solar race, which is closing very much like Lemuria and Atlantis, in that we're faced with the same situation at this moment in time where black magic seeks to prevail over white magic. And that's as straightforward as it gets as to where we're at. So within the 6th solar race is known as karate, and the 7th solar race is known as spiritual. There's a lot of hope in what I just said there, because what I'm talking about is the continuation of humanity. It's cosmos, it's cosmic clock. There will be a 6th solar race. There will be a 7th solar race. We will be given the opportunity to spiritualize. What is happening right now is a major transition. Because really what's happening is that the Mother Earth in this solar system is graduating into 5th dimensional energy. And those who align with that vibration of love will find their way through the portal. Those who do not align will be finding themselves in another system in order to learn what they need to learn to bring the heart into their equation. What we see in front of us is in essence a purification. And this purification happens like clockwork when we leave the Iron Age and we go to the Golden Age. I mean, think of it. How could we be in a Golden Age with a Mother Earth? How could we be in an age where we've raped the Mother Earth? So she needs to cleanse herself like any woman who is going to birth. She will cleanse herself. And that's what is upon us, is the cleansing for earth, golden age, get to be midwives. And someone said to me yesterday, well, what is the solution then in these times? And I said, it's an inside job. It's an inside job. When I change myself, I change the world. And when I change myself, the world begins to go into transition by virtue of my effort to clean myself up, to get with my father, to get with my mother, to eliminate those egos, to get rid of them, so that I'm on the vibration of love and I'm not on the vibration of fear. Fear is a virus that is upon us, not COVID. Fear is the virus upon us. And this is the acronym for fear. This acronym finally came true with COVID: false evidence appearing real. COVID, false evidence appearing real. Fear, fear. So the solution is for me to go and make a pact with spirit, because I forgot about my relationship to spirit. I forgot about the fact that I'm divine. You're all eternal. I'm eternal. Each one of us is eternity in action. This physical experience is nothing but an opportunity to learn how to become what you are, which is God. That's what you're here to do, to become one with the divine. As Grandfather William Commanda said to us all the time, oh, by Jove, one mind, one heart, one soul, one prayer. And within that is the divinity. Within that is your own divinity. Uspensky, a very beautiful philosopher, Russian philosopher, said, the most difficult thing on the spiritual path is remembering who you are. And you'll see in that word, remember. So you make that link, you make the link. And within that link comes the solution. Inspiration, the word in spirit. So when I meditate, I open myself up to inspiration, and that will give me answers. There are no answers in the external world. There are none. I'm a constitutional lawyer. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no more constitution. There's no more rule of law. We are in a very desperate situation with our system because we've had imposed on us an agenda. And that agenda comes from an off-planetary mind, not a human mind. It comes from an off-planetary mind. And it's within the context of that maybe we start getting really frightened. And then we start going, oh, wow, what are we going to do now? And I say to you, find your power, because that power exists within. It exists within. So the second step in the Inca teachings, the second step to the raising of consciousness is sacred alchemy. And sacred alchemy is actually sacred sex between a man and a woman who perform sex in a manner that is like Tantra is viewed as being high, but Tantra is erotic sex. This is meditative, prayerful act, a sexual act, which is designed to raise the Kundalini energy. So right behind me, we see the 7 chakras, and the base chakra is where we say the Kundalini energy resides, coiled 3.5 times, the serpent of wisdom. And through, they call it sacred, because from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, you're a chemical factory, a complete chemical factory. And so the combination of the positive, it produces the prayer. It's like back to the pipe, the bowl, the stem, the prayer, the man, the woman, the child. What we have is, in the 4th dimension, there are 24 cosmic laws. In the 3rd dimension, where we are, there are 48. So that's why the 4th dimension is like paradise, because there's half as many laws. And I'm talking about laws such as gravity, electricity, all of those laws that I enumerated them one time. It took me about a year, but I found enough material to put the 48 together. The law of relativity, the law of return. I mean, I could just go on and on. In the fourth dimension, there's only 24 laws, and that's the story of Adam and Eve coming from paradise, because it's beautiful there in the fourth dimension. The energy's higher, everything is incredible. In the fifth dimension, there's only 12 laws, half as many. In the sixth dimension, there's only 6 laws. And in the seventh dimension, 3 laws: positive, negative, neutralizing force. Where you find the Trinity everywhere. You find the Trinity in Hindu, you find the Trinity everywhere. In all, it's a universal consciousness, which means why the number 13 is so magical, because the one expressing through the 3, the one creative force expressing through positive, negative, and neutralizing force. Man, woman, inspiration, sacred alchemy, rising of Kundalini, exploding into the brain, and thereby achieving the raising of consciousness. It's said that the ascended masters have 100% consciousness. That's why they're so advanced. However, we come in with only 3% of consciousness, and we have 97% to make up. That's a lot. Why do you think there's such a long period of time for 7 solar races? It's like 3.4 billion years for 7 solar races to do this experiment, to spiritualize, to become, imbued with spirit. And what my teacher says, look, you just have to make 51, get to 51%. And he said, as far as sacred alchemy goes, that's very difficult for people in this time. The way things are just so sped up, you don't have time, because sacred alchemy requires like a sacred chamber, and it requires meditation and prayer. It's not like messing around. It's really deep and profound. So people just don't have the time for that. And so the masters say, look, work on your egos. Get your consciousness up to 51%, and you're going to be good. Because we're not really checking you off on sacred alchemy, because we know it's kind of confusing and filled with chaos. And the sign, you're going to love this, the sign for sacred alchemy is the caduceus of Mercury. That's the medical symbol. The medical symbol that all medicine has, which is the serpents, the twin serpents around the staff. That's the caduceus of Mercury. It's a sacred symbol. They took that sacred symbol, which represents health, and the only way you achieve perfect health is through sacred alchemy. Because in sacred alchemy, you make your chemical system perfect. No cancer, no heart attack, no nothing. But that, I say, it's very, whoa, there's only a few people I know who have practiced sacred alchemy and tell you advanced. And the symbol, the caduceus of Mercury, got stolen by medicine to represent health. And it's like the swastika, right? The swastika is a sacred symbol for the Hindus, but into an evil symbol. Isn't it amazing that they took the Mercury, the caduceus of Mercury, and made that the symbol for medicine, which is corrupt as hell? So that's the symbol for sacred alchemy. The third step in the raising of consciousness in the Icke teaching is a man and a woman teaching in unconditional love what they learned from practicing the first 2. And the symbol for that is the halo. And the reason for the halo is that they grew a vibration of love. They have an aura of love all around them. Thereby, with the touch, they can heal, because they're completely within the vibration of love. What holds everything together, what holds the whole cosmos together, is love. And so now, if I'm going to dedicate myself to the profound understanding of how I can participate in the vibration of love, then I want to take those steps. And when I take those steps, I create a completely different paradigm for myself. I don't have to be in fear. My teacher, I remember I told you when he was sitting in the Amazon jungle, and he said that, I was with my father and my mother, and so all that danger around me, he said they didn't bother me. But he also said this, and he told me at the end, of the story, so I'm doing the same with you. He said, Michael, you remember when I told you about all those animals, etc. I said, yeah. He said, well, Michael, when I got up to go to that opening, he said, they parted a way and made a path for me. And he said, I went right through the middle of where they had been, and I went into the cave. He said, you know, Michael, the dark forces guard the sacred places. The dark forces guard the sacred places. You're the sacred place. So what you're looking at is the dark force guarding you to this transition. So within it, as you move away from the vibration of fear into the vibration of love, you're going to get the exact same thing that Willaroo just identified, the parting of that fear sea. And that's where the solution lies. I can go on and on and on and on, but I also see that people have questions and things like that. So I'll stop.
I appreciate that, Michael. And all I can say is that's a mouthful. I have a couple of questions to start with. So when you start talking about the fifth world and the black magic versus the white magic, so are we talking about black being special ET races, or are we talking about beings? And then are we the white magic?
Yeah, sure.
Clear that up for me.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Like, no problem. Listen to me. Here's the thing. I don't know how many people have read David Icke. But if you read some, yeah, there you go. So if you read some David Icke, 20 years ago, they said David Icke was a nut bar, but he's not. And so what David Icke writes about is what we find in Babylon and Sumeria. On the walls are hieroglyphics. And they basically, what they did is their history of Babylon and Sumeria was in hieroglyphic text. And a man named Zachariah Sitchin, a Russian man, wrote 6 or 7 volumes wherein he translated those hieroglyphics. And of course, what they stand for is that the Anunnaki, or the beings from the planet Nibiru, landed and intermingled with humanity, and therefore they're running the show. And in essence, royalty comes from this. In other words, the mating of an ET, let's just say from Nibiru, and a woman from the earth produces blue blood. So that genetic makeup between the two of them is what produced royalty. And so there is a reptilian undertaking, because the Niburians are reptiles. And therefore, why 3,850 people can be put to dust at the World Trade Center with no thought or emotion about it. And it wasn't 9 guys from Saudi Arabia. It was another inside job, only not the right kind of inside, but nonetheless an inside job. And so 9/11 really represented the gong, because they banged the gong with fear. They upped the ante with fear. And then they demonstrated all sorts of things that they were able to do, like take down a building in the middle of New York. I'm sorry, 3 buildings in the middle of New York, and do all those nefarious things. But here's how David Icke describes it, and this is the best description I've heard. So the reptilian beings are in the inner earth in the 4th dimension, because you have to understand, in the 3rd dimension, there's black and white. In the 4th dimension, there's black and white. In the 5th dimension, there's black and white. In the 6th dimension, it starts to be just white. You understand me? So the magic is always, there's always this play, this duality, this play against white magic and black magic. But the is doing it. Magic's magic. Magic is magic. Magic exists in the universal consciousness, and it's in all of our being. But there everyone can go to a certain point, but when they make selfish decisions in relation to the magic, it turns black. When they use the magic for the people, to assist the people, to bring the people up, then it feeds love, the love vibration. The other feeds the fear vibration. So what have you had on the Mother Earth since you came out of the womb? Fear vibration. 1946, United Nations is founded, and UNESCO is United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Committee. I got right here in front of me one of the founding documents written by Julian Huxley. This is in 1946, folks. I was born in 1947. Oh, I gave my age away. But 1 year before, this is what Julian Huxley said. It's only 2 paragraphs, so don't fall asleep. Biological inequality is, of course, the bedrock fact on which all of eugenics is predicated. But it is not usually realized that the 2 types of inequality have quite different and indeed contrary eugenic implications. The inequality of mere difference is desirable, and the preservation of human variety should be one of the 2 primary aims of eugenics. Well, thank you for that. But the inequality of level or standard is undesirable. And the other primary aim of eugenics should be the raising of the mean level of all desirable qualities. While there may be dispute over certain qualities, there can be none over a number of the most important, such as a healthy constitution, a high innate general intelligence, or a special aptitude, such as that for mathematics or music. Oh my God. At the moment, it is probable that the indirect effect of civilization is dysgenic instead of eugenic. And in any case, it seems likely that the dead weight of genetic stupidity, physical weakness, mental instability, and disease proneness, which already exist in the human species, will prove too great a burden for real progress to be achieved. Thus, even though it is quite true that any radical eugenic policy will be for many years politically and psychologically impossible, it will be important for UNESCO to see that the eugenic problem is examined with the greatest care and that the public mind is informed of the issues at stake, so that much now is unthinkable may at least become thinkable. 1946.
1946.
1946. And you'll have to appreciate Bill Gates Jr. has a father named William Gates Sr. And in 1916, he and John Rockefeller founded eugenics in America. The Rockefellers bought the United Nations land in Geneva and in New York. The Rockefellers run the United Nations along with the Rothschilds. The plan that's on humanity has been afoot forever. Forever. They've always controlled us. But now what they want to do is they want to put us into transhumanism. And so this whole idea of the vaccination is just simply to get everybody under control, and then the kill shots will be coming later. Now it's just to get them all messed up in their head and confused and chaotic and everything else. But it's coming, as David Icke says, over here is the spider in the 4th dimensional energy. It's the reptilian beings. And then all the secret societies, Mossad, CIA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they're the web. So those secret societies and the intelligence agencies and all these num-nums, they're the web. So the mind of the spider puts the agenda, and then the web carries it out. And, you know, when someone says to me, well, can't we stop them? And I say, we don't have our hands on the levers that they're doing, but what we do have is a heart and a mind that is all powerful when we get together. And they're really not that many in number. They're able to control because they're far more advanced technologically than humanity is. And they've been controlling humanity since forever. You know, the taser comes from their ability to just point their finger and give you an electric shock. That's just the situation. We that's why it is so important for us to begin this inside job on ourselves.
Yeah, this is this world that we live in, as our consciousness allows us to live in. We put it in different words and different terms. Heard in this form, and this delivery of your message that you've started with tonight or today is just interesting. Because I have a series of questions going into it, which are irrelevant at this point. I'm not even, and I'm thrilled that we've gone this direction. Typically, we would, I could ask other questions, the love and fear concepts, but so I've heard maybe just a quick one here, because I know there are some other people that do have some other questions, but and typically we don't ask questions to the end, but I think there's so much material you're talking about here. I think it's better we get it out now and do that. So just if I could ask one last question, and then we'll go to everybody else in there. This concept of fear and love, and I've heard this some time ago, and that the only two exist. So if you can get into the love, stay there, and be that consciousness that wants to carry the day, that wants to be positive, wants to have that energy and the love, no matter what happens to you. That carries the day. If you can keep in that vibration or that consciousness. Can you add more to that?
Sure, I can. So you see, if we can only begin to see ourselves as a vessel, we see ourselves as a personality and a body. But if we could begin to see ourselves as a vessel, that in essence, yoga means union with the soul. That's what yoga actually means, union with the soul. So each and every one of us is a soul, an entity that you were here before, you'll be here again, because you're in eternity. And that's the beauty of our existence. The beauty of our existence is that we're souls connected to and from the divine. We came from the perfect absolute sun as a spark, and we went into physical experiences in order for us to grow in consciousness. So if I begin to look at myself as a vessel, then I have to open myself up. And I got this beautiful book that I highly recommend to everyone because it's so inspirational. And it's entitled My Apprenticeship with a Himalayan Master. And it's written by Sri M. So that's SRI and the initial M. And so it's about this man who's 19 years of age, and he is desperate to find God and God consciousness. And he decides that what he's going to do is go into the Himalayas and seek out a guru. He's not going to stop until he finds one. In fact, he says, if I don't, I'm going to commit suicide, because life isn't worth living if I can't find what I'm looking for. And he goes into the Himalayas and he meets all sorts of people, but he's extremely disappointed in every one of them because there's something that they have an agenda or whatever. It never seems to work out. And he's now at the point of desperation, and it's evening, and he's looking at the Ganges, the river, and he's going, I've had it. I've really had it. I'm just going to walk into the Ganges, and that's it, because it's just didn't work out. As he's saying that to himself, all of a sudden, out of the corner of his eye, you get a glint, and he looks to where the glint was, and he sees what looks to be a fire. And it's like a fire, somebody beside a fire. He sees someone sitting there, and he gets a little closer, and he sees that it's the entrance to a cave. Entrance to a cave. And the man that was sitting there in front of the fire, he went to him and he said, and the man whose name was Babaji said, I've been waiting for you. Right? And so he met his guru, and he spent 3 years with his guru. And some of what he taught him were absolutely incredible. I mean, they would sit and meditate for 16 hours a day. They would have all sorts of spiritual experiences that if you read the book, you'll just be completely blown away by, because it's just so deep and profound. But one of the most beautiful things I learned from reading those books, it wasn't just that one, but several of them, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda is another extremely beautiful book. But here's one of the messages that comes through it. And listen carefully. You are not the doer. You are not the doer. So if you come to the realization that you do not, it's not you that's doing, it's the energy of the divine coursing through you that is the doer. Therefore, the need to honor my father and my mother, because then I make myself a vessel for the light. And when I make myself a vessel for the light, then the light comes in me. And because of my relationship to my mother and father, I cast the light. And in casting the light, I am experiencing service to myself and to you and to you. The Inca Wiracocha, from the divine in me to the divine in you, we're both vessels. I'm no better, I'm no worse. I'm the same. I'm a vessel. And within being a vessel, I can incorporate that spirit energy. There is consciousness in a rock. There is consciousness in a tree. There is consciousness in an animal. There is consciousness in a human being, and there's consciousness in a superhuman being, which is your inheritance. That's what you seek to inherit, is this raising of consciousness, because you will be a master. You will be a god and a goddess, because that's what we're intended to do. We will achieve it. Will we achieve it in this second solar system before the end of the seventh solar race is the big question mark. And I say, karate and spiritual sound pretty good as names for the sixth and seventh. That's what I say. And riding like broncos through what we're going through on the wild horse, coming to understand that everything, I have to tell you this story. It just hit me how important to have to tell you this story right now.
Please do.
I was with Dehani Yawahu. Dehani Yawahu is Cherokee. She lives in Vermont. And she combines Buddhism and Cherokee teachings. Wow, that's pretty cool. She combines Buddhism and Cherokee teachings. I was standing on a porch, my wife Susan and I, grandfather William Commanda, his sacred fire keeper Peter DeConte, and grandmother Yawahu. And it's like a moment froze when she said this. And this is what she said. Listen to the wind. It will tell you everything. Does that answer your question?
I'm taking it. You know, Michael, it's like stepping into another, at this point, it's like stepping into another dimension, even as we've gone through it. I mean, I find it, it's like you're on a learning curve here. You're trying to absorb as you go through it.
You have to appreciate too, just for your own edification and for everyone's, I've been a student of Willaru Waita since 1998. I have not stopped serving him nor being with him or the teachings. He is the one who exposed all these teachings to me. But I also had as a mentor, grandfather William Commanda. You know, I worked with him until he passed in 2011. He was 97 years of age. And he passed in August the 3rd, 2011. My wife, Susan, is a nurse, and she was really his private nurse. He phoned her at 3 in the morning, and he passed at 5 in the morning. Wow. That's the relationship that we had with William Commanda. And then I had Willaru Waita. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
The concept of oneness, like that's something that I've grown into and have become a part of me. That's why there's not good and bad. There's whatever it is. And oneness, if we're all one, it's an easier way to understand. There's a guest that we've had on named Garnet Scholheiser, who wrote a book. And one of the moments that I remember in his book, and I don't read a lot of books quite often, but I will say on this particular book, I couldn't stop reading it. And one of the moments was these beings would come and take him out of his house and take him to the, I guess, a different dimension, or the Akasha. I'm just trying to think of
Shambhala.
to a spiritual place.
Right.
You call it heaven, you could call it whatever you'd like, whatever people want to refer to as. The comment he made was, one of the things that caught him off guard was he walked up to a bench, and he describes it as seeing Hitler with Jesus Christ sitting on a bench discussing his last life. And I get goosebumps down my back thinking about, so when I say the word Hitler, there's an instant concept that appears. The fear pops right into your head, right? And then when he introduced Jesus beside him talking about the thing, the connection of oneness for me came together at that moment. But I've been exploring it for the rest of my life. So the oneness, what can you say about the oneness? Because I've heard black magic versus white, but are you still of the oneness?
Always, always, always. It's the only thing. It's the only thing. I mean, the creative force holds all of this together with the vibration of love. And the creative force gave us duality so that we could learn it ourselves, not infuse it in us, but said the love was so high, it is, here, I'm going to give you individuality, and I'm going to test you. I'm going to put you into a test where if you can overcome duality, you will come into the one. There it is.
Yeah.
So it's the oneness of there is a universal consciousness that emanates from the one creative force that courses through me, through you. And when I honor my father and my mother, then I'm recognizing its existence. Now, in order for me to move to the one, I have to think like the one. And that's where the problem comes in, because the egos come in, and then the egos take over the show, and the oneness gets pushed into duality. And now you're good, bad, now right or wrong. Now it's all this stuff. And so it's this ability to move out of that. Listen, what we're in right now is, I want to tell you all, you're all in initiation. This is an initiation. And within that initiation, how you behave is where it's at. I heard an elder say to me one time, Mother Earth gives you everything. She gives you survival skills. She gives you food, clothing, shelter, everything you need, water. And the only thing that you have to give back is your behavior. That's how we get to oneness, because we check our behavior. We put in check the things that have invaded humanity, in part of the keep you off balance so that you become balanced yourself, not because the divine blew it into you. It's because you did it. And in doing that, then you become a contributor to the one. That's really where it's at. And so if I'm in oneness, then I don't let rule me. It can't rule me.
And these are interchangeable terms, love and fear, right? That's an interchangeable term when you start talking like that. I'm talking duality is fear, and unity and love is one. Because if you consider us all one, and you think of Hitler, and you say, you are Hitler.
Yeah.
You are all, you're everything. So it's easy to say, therefore, I don't fear Hitler. If I am Hitler, he's going through, or he did, or that vessel went through that experience for gathering of consciousness, whatever that may have been in the fifth world, for instance, as you've referred to it. So anyway, I've spoken enough. I just think let's, if we can go to Marianne, I'd like her to come on and actually ask the question. We usually type it in the side, but I think I want this more personable. I want you to sort of hear someone speak, and they may want to interact with you at the same time, because I think that there's some value in that. So Marianne, can you? I'm not sure if she's still around or.
She can't talk right now.
Okay, that's fine.
Her question is, I understand fear and the stronghold on us, or should I say some. How are those who know the truth go up against their employers who are forcing vaccination?
Well,
Vaccination.
yeah, yeah, thank you. I actually, I see it now too, and I understand it. And it's amazing that Marianne is asking that question, because I've been asked tomorrow to go and address 50 long-term healthcare workers on the very question that she's asking. And so I'm going to make an hour presentation on that, by the way. So just so you know, I'm not going to keep you for an hour, but I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of the answer. So here's the answer. Number one, they have no authority to do this, to force vaccination. There is no authority for doing it. It's a mind screw. Let's just put it that way. It's a mind screw, and yet they'll get away with it. Eventually, they're going to get away with it. But here's the situation. First and foremost, this is not about. This is gene therapy experiment. So it's not a vaccination. It's described in their prospectuses that they filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission as a gene therapy experiment. You have to then be conscious and aware of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which says, Article 7 says, no one shall be subjected to a medical experiment without prior informed consent. So this is a medical experiment, and they can't give you informed consent because they can't even tell you what's in the damn injection. So that it's pretty simple then, isn't it? So I just stand on International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights and I do that. But it doesn't win the day. It doesn't win the day because they're going to force you into a process. Now, I'll give you an example of if someone is faced with this and they want to keep their job. Well, I've already established the precedent with a university professor. So what we did is they sent them the letter that everybody gets. You have to have double vax by such and such a time, or you're going to lose your job. So we put in a medical exemption. We got a letter from a doctor, and she said he can't take the vaccination, and they accepted it. They accepted the exemption. And then they said, but in order to accommodate him, he can't go on campus. He can only teach remotely, and he has to have a PCR test done. We got a medical exemption from the PCR test and said, no, he can't get swabbed. He'll do saliva. So they said, okay, they accepted that. So my point to you is we established the precedent that I can extend your thing, but I'm not telling those people that you're going to win the day with that. That's temporary secretary stuff. It's only going to hold for so long because the tsunami of having to get everybody vaccinated is going to get pumped up here. And it's going to get pumped up to the place where you're going to be seeing the military. So this isn't, I don't think, a solution, what I just told you. But I have established the precedent that it works. I know after my conversation with those workers tomorrow, they're going to want me to do a class action in order to take on this mandatory vaccination. And I will. I don't know if it's a class action. I don't know if it's a notice of application. And the reason I'm saying all that is because the courts are compromised. They have all drunk the Kool-Aid. There is no rule of law. There is no constitution. Let me tell you this. This is supposedly a national emergency, right? Supposedly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There's a piece of legislation called the Emergencies Act that should have been invoked if there was a national emergency, but they didn't. And what they did, the feds, they stepped aside and they let the provinces go into the territory. That's constitutionally illegal. You can't step aside and let the province take over your authority or your field. It's like saying, I'm not going to do criminal law anymore. The provinces can look after it. Nay, nay, nay. It's federal. It's a federal jurisdiction under 91 of the Constitution, Section 91. So why? Well, because if you go look at the preamble of the Emergencies Act, you'll see the reason why. If you are going to declare the Emergencies Act, there are 3 things that you must do. Number 1, you have to wash it or put it under the scrutiny of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and make sure that you're not offensive to it in anything that you're going to say under the emergency. Number two, you have to have it scrutinized under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Number three, you have to go into Parliament and seek permission from Parliament. They didn't want to do none of those things. So they just stepped aside. And then we got all these provincial nimrods who are then running the show, but it's not them running the show. It's the spider through the web. Well, if it's the spider through the web, then how did the court system not observe that there's something amiss here? Because the web looked after that. And that's the deal, right? So I can tell them, yes, we can go to court, and yes, I can expose everything I've just said, but I'd have to have a forum that's receptive, and I don't. So I can't give them false hope in the sense of I'm going, oh yeah, I'm the lawyer, don't worry, we'll get this one, we'll get these guys. I'm not going to be so out there as to say that to them. But I want to read you all something right now. It's so appropriate that it fits in with what I'm saying. Oh, and by the way, the actual answer to Marianne's question is follow what I'm doing on Elders Without Borders in relation to this question, and you'll be able to jump aboard the legal thing, and we'll help you any way we can. But here is something that I think hits the money for just exactly what we're talking about. My son from my first marriage, who's going to turn 50, 50 years of age. Oh my God. He's going to turn 50. And he and I have been talking back and forth. And then he sent me this. And this is from Hopi Indian Chief White Eagle. Commented a few days ago on the current situation. Quote, this moment humanity is experiencing can be seen as a door or a hole. The decision to fall in the hole or walk through the door is up to you. If you consume the news 24 hours a day with negative energy, constantly nervous, with pessimism, you will fall into this hole. But if you take the opportunity to look at yourself, to rethink life and death, to take care of yourself and others, then you will walk through. Care of your home, care of your body, connect with your spiritual home. When you take care of yourself, you take care of everyone at the same time. Do not underestimate the spiritual dimension of this crisis. Do not underestimate the spiritual dimension of this crisis. Take the perspective of an eagle that sees everything from above with a broader view. There is a social question in this crisis, but also a spiritual question. The two go hand in hand. Without the social dimension, we fall into fanaticism. Without the spiritual dimension, we fall into pessimism and futility. Are you ready to face this crisis? Grab your toolbox and use all the tools at your disposal. Learn resistance from the example of Indian and African peoples. We have been and are exterminated, but we never stopped singing, dancing, lighting a fire, rejoicing. Don't feel guilty for feeling blessed in these troubled times. Being sad or angry doesn't help at all. Resistance is resistance through joy. You have the right to be strong and positive, and there's no other way to do it than to maintain a beautiful, happy, bright posture. Has nothing to do with alienation, ignorance of the world. It's a resistance strategy. When we cross the threshold, we have a new worldview because we faced our fears and difficulties. This is all you can do now. Serenity in the storm. Keep calm and pray every day. Show resistance through art, joy, trust, and love. White eagle.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
that is emotional stuff.
Yeah.
How do you know? In any chance you could send that to me? That
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
I would love to see that. There are
Yeah.
so many people I'd like to share that with.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
and
It's brilliant.
I appreciate the emotions that you show. Typically we have the concept of lawyers is not usually a positive one.
Yeah.
I'm working with a politician right now who is spiritual and headed towards making a change for leadership in the Conservative Party in Manitoba, and he's against the monster, not the monsters, the giants in the field of politics. So it's a very interesting the concept we're dealing with here, and the idea of oneness, the also connection to saying that's also us. That's all, the idea could keep you smiling, could keep you going through that phase where you'd say, this is an experience. I have a soul, I have a spirit that will recreate into something greater, and the sixth world is ours, type of thing.
Yeah, you got it. There, you got it. Take that last sentence you said, take that paragraph you just said, put it up on the bulletin board of your mind. Everybody's bulletin board of their minds, because that's it. And Susan and I say to each other, whenever you get like that little corner of the mouth going down, dig for that joy and bliss, dig for it, because it's in existence. And in that joy and bliss, I can help people. But if I'm dragging my ass around like, I don't understand what's happening, what the hell are we going to do? I got to have a plan, right? And the plan is an inside job. And then in that inside job, I open my vessel, I open it to the light, I open it to oneness. And that's exactly what you're talking about. That's why I say that paragraph you said, it's taped. So go back on this tape and put that up on the wall, because it's the deal. All the time I'm talking, I'm watching Mitzi, and I'm watching Mitzi know exactly what I'm going to say. Because that's evidence of one. That's the evidence that we share thoughts, we share experiences, and then so when we open ourselves up, I mean, Mitzi knows that what happened to me. I have to say it this way: when Susan and I first got together, we heard about a psychic in Carleton Place, and so we went to see her. And it was an amazing experience because she was very gifted. And when it was over, she handed me a book. She said, I think you should read this. I didn't know an Indigenous person. I did not know an Indigenous person. Turns out she was. We didn't find out until later. But at the time, it was like I was completely oblivious. And the book was entitled, When Lightning Strikes a Hummingbird. Okay? And this is unbelievable because that's the first book she gave me. And then what it was about was a man from New York City in Central Park. He gets struck by lightning, and overnight he becomes a shaman. Because he got struck by lightning, that's what happened to him. He became a shaman. Well, she was giving me a book that was predictive of what was about to happen to me. I was about to go on the red road. I was going to get struck by lightning. And I did. I got struck by lightning. I did. I totally did. And that's the essence of us. That's all of us, all of us. Okay, so the other part of the story that's amazing is that grandfather William Commanda, growing up, was a fighter, a drunk. He was just a badass. And he ends up getting stomach cancer. And then medical doctors say, go pack your stuff and do your affairs because you got 3 months. And he goes back, and luckily for him, his wife really was into indigenous medicine and medicine men. And so she said, stop with being in the dumps there. And what happened was, she said, I'm going to bring you to a medicine man, and we're going to deal with your medical condition. And so he was in pain one night. He was it was just him in the house, and he was on his knees and he was praying. He was just praying for some kind of deliverance. And a hummingbird came to the window and began to tap on the window. And so his wife did take him to a medicine man. The medicine man cured him. And in 3 months, it was down, the tumor was down to a little thing that they were able to remove, and he was good to go. And that's when that was his epiphany. His epiphany was that. And so for me, the hummingbird represents him. Every time I see a hummingbird, I think of Grandfather William Command, because that was his entree, the transformation of him into an incredible spiritual leader who exemplified and did all the things we're talking about: one mind, one soul, one prayer, one direction. So you see what I'm saying? It's just all there. So it was there for me at the beginning. When lightning strikes a humming, was the telling of me, and it's all us. It's all of us. That's the magic.
So Michael, I just wanted you to be aware that some of the people listening to you are from America, our group worldwide. But the question about vaccinations is similar to Canada as well as the United States.
Yeah. It's the
So-
same. It's the same thing. It's the same. Well, let's get real as to what it is. It's a tyrannical agenda that they are using to have tyranny just seep into everywhere. And had this, tell you all, and that I had this terrible exchange or information given to me. My daughter, the one I told you about, who was 20 days old when we started our journey. She's now 25 years of age.
You turned your video off, Michael.
I did. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I did. Yeah, sorry. There we go. So she said to me, her best friend, who's absolutely against all this and won't get vaccinated, and her boyfriend, he won't get vaccinated, but the boyfriend's father is a police officer, and he's not a rookie. He's like his whole career as a police officer. And they get into a heated discussion about the vaccination. And then the son says, I don't care. There's no way in the world that I'm taking this vaccination. And he said, do you think that's really going to work when the military's on the ground and we're asked to help them get you vaccinated? You're full of shit. And he hasn't spoken to him since. That was 2 days ago. What does he know? I don't know. And what he knows is that the military is all ready to go. And the military is all ready to go around the world. And it's not going to be long before we're all going to get shut freaking right down. And that's going to be the thing, asking the questions about mandatory vaccinations is leading us into the tyranny that's coming. We have to do why we have to go into our power. It's our power that will defeat this. It's not going to be a court of law. It's like me acting for Native people for the last 20 years and then going into court and saying to the genocider, can you stop genociding? That's the deal, right? That's the deal. I mean, I actually had an experience in court where I had a very sympathetic judge, and I was doing a constitutional argument on behalf of Native people. We were in trial for 22 days. He was like sympathetic to the situation I was bringing. But I mentioned the word genocide in the middle of the trial. And this is what the judge said, who was sympathetic. He said, oh, Mr. Swinwood, could you find another word for that? Another word for that. And there was a police officer in the stand, and I was inspired in that moment to go, oh, no, Your Honor, but I have another way. And he says, oh, what's that, Mr. Swinwood? And I said, well, officer, is there the crime of genocide in the Criminal Code of Canada? And he said, no. And I said, let's open our criminal codes. And when we open them to section 385, the crime of genocide is there. And His Honor said, oh, you made your point, Mr. Swin. But you see what I'm saying? I had a sympathetic judge, and I had to walk him through the steps of what that meant, and that it's a crime, and it's in your own criminal code. And by the way, genocide is 5 definitions. In our criminal code, there were only 2 or 3. They left 2 out because they knew of their vulnerability. Now we have the Crimes Against Humanity Act, which enumerates all 5 definitions of genocide and enumerates the crime of apartheid, but you can't prosecute unless the Attorney General of Canada gives you permission. Oh, that's a good piece of legislation.
Yeah, right.
So that's the situation in relation to Native people. It's always been this subtlety that no one else knew about. The rest of society didn't know what I was talking about. And now when this came along, when COVID-19 came along, I turned to my wife and I said, this is 9/11 only worse. They're going to do bad stuff now. And the bad stuff that they're going to do has everything to do with genocide. That's why earlier when I think it was Brad, whoever, anyway, when we were talking earlier, talking about this concept, right? He was saying, oh, go back to 1842 or something. Go to 1492. And here's the document that Pizarro read to the Hispaniola. It was Hispaniola. So it was the Taino Indians. And he read that requerimiento, the requirements. And this is what he read. I'm here on behalf of the Lord of the universe, the Pope, and the Lord of the land, the King. And there will be someone coming through with a book to teach you about those 2 lords. And should you accept the crown and the cross, we will grant you privileges and exemptions. Should you tarry, we'll kill you and your whole family. And within a year and a half, 8 million Taino Indians were dead. And notice that what they said was, if you accept the crown and the cross, we will grant you privileges and exemptions. That's law. It's either a privilege you're exercising or an exemption. That's it. So guess what? They announced on the soil of North and South America, tyranny. If you go look at Virginia, which is not a state, it's a commonwealth, the Commonwealth of Virginia. And let's go look at the logo and symbol of this Commonwealth of Virginia. And what we will see, you'll see it right now. You can just Google it, Commonwealth of Virginia, look up in the right-hand corner, and you'll see a woman in a Roman toga standing on a woman who's lying on the ground. So she's standing on top of that woman. And the slogan is, Sic semper tyrannis, thus always tyranny. Oh, is the CIA in Virginia, or is that Dorothy? And the CIA should be called the Catholic Information Agency because it's filled with Jesuits. And the Jesuits really control 3 major places that are their own sovereign place: the City of London, the Vatican, and Washington, District of Columbia. And Washington, DC, District of Columbia, comes about through the Town Organic Act, which saw the merger of the town of Washington with the District of Georgetown, which is Jesuit headquarters in the United States.
Thank you. We have Pamela with a question.
And more an exclamation rather than a question. Michael, I wanted to just thank you so much for your succinctness in tying together so many threads on so many levels. And I've just been fascinated at the full circle that you started out speaking about, having read about Barbara Masiniak's work, which I had read about when I lived in Santa Fe. Then you came to Foster Perry's book, Being Struck by Lightning, or Hummingbird Struck by When Lightning Strikes a Hummingbird. And he was a friend of mine. Our friendship developed in Santa Fe. You talked about lightning striking you. I opened up a catalog of, oh goodness, I forgot the publishing, Barron Company, I think it is.
Yeah, it's Barron Company.
Yeah, when his book had first come out, and my girlfriend I was visiting her house and she had it on her table. And I said, oh, can I take a look at this? And she said, sure. And she walked over just as I opened it, and I'm going, I need to meet that person. I need to meet that person. And that was in Sedona. And within months, I had moved to Santa Fe and coincidentally rented a bedroom from a good friend of Foster Perry's. And a shamanic Amazon teacher came up and actually commented about the two of us. And he said, do you recognize her? He says, yeah, she's my friend. And he's like, no, but do you recognize her? And he said that we were brother and sister because we carried the same medicine, the malachite of the forest and the dolomite, not dolomite, oh gosh, it's from Larimar, there we go, the waterfall. And that's the way they, the healing medicine that they talked about. But the oneness, as I was sitting here writing, I went, remembering our essence keeps us anchored in love. And those that are transitioning at this time are merely bridges to help us do the spiritual work that's needed at this time. Because the other thing that came up for me is 9/11. I had a whole series, I'm a dreamer. I had a whole series of dreams prior to that. One of them was humanity, people coming up to me and asking me what they could do each day. And I center in your heart, before you go out into your day, you'll be led, you know what to do, because what was happening is they were being forced to take a shot.
There you go.
So you're right. There's like way back then was the beginning. And we are so much more than physical bodies. So we just have to keep on having faith. And my wedding ring that I'm not married now, but it used to be the Hummingbird.
There you go.
Yeah, so,
There you go.
yeah. So thank you so much for sharing. And this is timely. And yes, I appreciate your inspiration to remind everybody of how important our inner work is.
Thank you, Pamela. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Synchronicity.
Yeah.
Anyone else that would like to ask a question of Michael?
I would like to, Michael, would you like to come back? I love your presentation, the love that you have. I wrote to Mark as you were beginning to speak. I could literally see your body rising. I could see huge energy behind you and spirits behind you.
Yeah, Mitzi. Meant to be, and I was meant to be capable of understanding what we're talking about. And I was gifted with the experience of being a lawyer, which just made me a fighter, and then the seeking led me to spiritual warriorship. And it's no accident that we were on this journey with elders, with wisdom keepers, who I credit. These are the people who opened the door for me. These are the people who opened my mind. And in opening my mind, they just filled it with such beautiful stuff. You know what Pamela had to say there is just a perfect linkage, right? It's a perfect linkage because it's demonstrating that oneness. It's demonstrating that we are all on this wavelength in this consciousness. And the more we reach out to each other, then we can support each other. And so the answer to your question is, yes, I'll come back anytime. And I can go on for days. So I'm never going to lack for material, I can tell you that. Because of what you say, I'm open to the idea that it's not me. It's not me. I go to court, I prepare probably more than a lawyer. When I go in to plead, I empty my mind. I meditate. and I wait for inspiration. That's why I said at the beginning of this, I can hardly wait to hear what I'm going to say, because I didn't prepare anything. And then maybe this or that, but the bottom line is I'm in acceptance of that. I'm in acceptance that I'm inspired, because I'm in acceptance of being with spirit. And Grandfather William Commanda, he may have passed the physical body in 97, but he didn't abandon me. He's with me. That's why I get emotional now and again, because I feel his presence. I feel it. But he's not the only one, because you're saying it and I know it. There's a whole coterie of one who are supporting me in this, because they know I'm saying it authentically and truthfully. The same applies for all of you, though. It's the same thing. I'm not the only one. I'm not unique in this. Each of us has the exact same thing, and Pamela demonstrated it, and so do you, Mitzi, and Mark has, and everyone here has the same capacity. And we just have to dig deeper and be more profound with ourselves. And I've been lucky to have teachers who go, think about this. Think about this for a while. Think about what it is that your responsibility is. There's 3 questions each of us have to ask ourselves. No, not have to, but if we asked ourselves these questions, we get somewhere. And the first question is, who am I? And the second question is, what am I? And the third question is, how do I serve? And when I answer those questions, I'll define myself way better. Elaine has a question. She's got her hand up.
Right, take yourself off mute, Elaine.
I'm looking for it. Okay,
There, you got it.
now, I'm also looking for shouldn't have the camera here. Okay, you were talking about the positive and negative, and then the neutralizing force. What do you mean by that? The neutralizing force?
Well, it would be something that is a force that comes between what is and negative. Would know it as spirit, as the energy of spirit. So that really what you're talking about with positive and negative is what you're talking about is electricity. Let me put it to you this way. In the indigenous tradition, the sacred fire keeper is a very cherished position and respected by the community. And of course, the sacred fire keeper knows that that fire represents the sun and represents the energy of the sun. And so what happens with the human being, if you look at the human being has 3 fires. They have the fire of the head, the electricity in the head. They have the fire of the heart, the electricity of the heart. And they have the fire of the loins. The fire in the head is electrical. The fire in the heart is solar. And the fire in the sacral center is fire by friction. Fire by friction. Makes sense, doesn't it? So in the end, each of us is a sacred fire keeper. And how I tend each of those fires equals who I am. And within the chemical makeup of the human being, positive and negative. So it's an electrical charge that is created. You can't do negative on negative. You can't do positive on positive. Positive and negative is what produces fire. And God is fire. Everything emanates from the fire. So the issue of positive, negative, the neutralizing force is the energy of the one, the energy of the divine. That's what it is.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed your talk. I mean,
Great.
yes, I'm with Mitzi. Come back again.
Okay,
Just
great.
awesome. Just awesome.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we
Okay.
have Brad. Brad,
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. Quite fascinating there. You touched on a vast number of points, and yeah, we need you to come back. It's been quite fascinating. I would like to shift back to an earlier point that you raised about the white buffalo calf woman and the prophecies that she laid down. It's an interesting aspect for me because I'm working with an individual here in Winnipeg who is essentially the seventh generation pure blood descendant of Chief Sitting Bull. And he is a part of this white buffalo prophecy. And I'm wondering why and how did that become integrated into the grandmothers, the Kukums, for this group that you created, the Elders Without Borders?
You mean how did the white? Well, another story arises. Well, I told you that I was taken with the white buffalo calf prophecy when I did my interview with elders. And I did a report, and I chose as a cover of that report, white buffalo calf woman holding the pipe and the white buffalo calf in the clouds above it. And that would have been 1994, 95. Flash forward to 2004. And I got a phone call from some people that were from Toronto area. And they said, listen, we're all white, but on the weekends we practice the red, bring in do drum. We get elders teachings, and we got weekend in Algonquin Park. And we were wondering, because we've heard of Willaroo Waita from Cusco, Peru, we've all collectively dreamt of meeting him, and we understand you know him. Will you come and speak to us about him and the Sacred Valley? And I said yes, and it was so no coincidence. I had just returned from Peru. I'd been there for about a month, and we'd been doing ceremony the whole time pretty well. And so I was, I had pictures and all sorts of things. So I went up and I talked to this group for 3 hours. And when we were finished, I was leaving. It was like a rural property, bumpy road leading to the main road. And as I was driving, the woman in front of me stopped her car. She jumped out. And she came, I rolled down the window, and she said, I have something to tell you. And I said, oh yeah, what's that? She said, I've been watching you for 3 hours, and you have white buffalo calf energy all around you. And I said, well, whoa, that's amazing, because like I have this affinity with the white calf. She said, oh, something for you. She opened her trunk and she took out a hockey bag that a hockey player would keep their gear in, but she used for all her ceremonial stuff, her rattles, her drum, the whole nine. She took out a shoe bag that a woman would keep her shoes in. And she undid the shoe bag, and she said to me, this is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Manitoba's animal is the buffalo, correct?
Of course. So the white buffalo calf was given to me by her, and she said, I've been doing ceremony with the white buffalo calf for 4 years. And the last sweat I was in, the elders told me, there is someone that you are supposed to give this to. And she handed it to me and said, it's you. So that's really where my relationship with the white buffalo calf and the grandmothers I work with was put together. In addition, the traditional grandmother that I work with, Grandmother Jane Chartrand, Algonquin, she has dreams and visions like all elders and shamans, right? And she's had probably 4 dreams involving her and I and the white buffalo calf. And it's just amazing stuff. And she eventually had a painting done where it's a white buffalo calf, but you can see through its ribs. And when you look through its ribs, it's a native maiden suspended seemingly by the one in a horizontal position inside the white buffalo calf. This is and 4 warriors coming over the hill, which is significant of them coming for the teachings, the spiritual teachings from the woman. And what the white buffalo calf prophecy did for me personally was embed in my mind matriarchy. That's what it embedded in my mind, matriarchy, and therefore led me to work with the grandmothers.
Yeah, I ultimately it's the grandmothers that seem to be the keepers of the knowledge, and things have gotten twisted from matriarchs to the of the and yeah, a lot of learning to be well, some unlearning and learning to be done simultaneously. On another note, on your travels in Peru, did you get up to Lake Titicaca at all and talk to any
Oh,
elders
yeah.
up there?
Oh yeah, kinda. Lake Titicaca is just one powerful place. Powerful. And you know, Lake Titicaca was at sea level at one point and is now
No.
at 13,000 feet.
I did not know that, no.
Yes, Lake Titicaca, so this is evidence of the Earth's change. Lake Titicaca was at sea level and it's now at 13,000 feet. She's the highest navigable lake in the world. I've been on the Reed Islands. I don't know if you know about the Reed Islands, but in Lake Titicaca, there are many indigenous people who make their homes on Reed Islands. They take
Yes.
the reeds from the lake and they make their homes there.
Yes, I certainly do know that, and it's really quite remarkable how they're able to do that.
And the last time we were there, no, I shouldn't say the last time, it was maybe 6 years ago. On one island, they had a condor, and the condor was like following one guy around the whole time, and they gifted us their feathers. And on the other island, they had an eagle, and the eagle followed this one man around all the time. I mean, come on, you can't write this stuff, you know, eagle and a condor in Lake Titicaca, come on. It's pretty wild. Now, the other thing about Lake Titicaca is it's well known that spaceships go in and out of Lake Titicaca all the time. They're coming in, they're going out all the time. And then the other thing about Lake Titicaca is in Cusco, which is known as the navel of the world, was a sacred place where they kept the disk of the sun. And so the disk of the sun was a huge, huge disk. And it was suspended by very strong ropes. And the disk, I mean, you could, if you touched a certain vibration, you could cause an earthquake. In other words, it had incredible powers. And the Inca, knowing what was coming, took that sacred solar disk, which was a representation of the sun, and it is in Lake Titicaca now in an underground cave to be brought out when humanity needs it the most.
Wow, I did not realize that. Lake Titicaca is certainly quite interesting. There was, did you see the stone, walk up to the stone carving, the stone doorway on the side of the mountain?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Are you talking about the entrance into the fourth dimension carving?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. This is what you're talking about right here. How's that camera go? Okay, here it is. So you can't really see the definition of this too well, but I'll just describe it. There's two figures here. They're both 18 feet tall, and they represent the guardians to the doorway of the fourth dimension. This is in Puno, which is just outside Lake Titicaca. And it was given to me, this carving was made by a boy about 12. He's got the Pleiades up here. He's got the Pleiades at the top. And then he's got the serpent here. And then he's got the guardians to the doorway to the fourth dimension here. And this serves as this platform.
Mm.
Wow.
It's funny that you should ask.
No, we're all
This is
connected
all
to
by
the
chance.
one. No,
Yeah,
yeah.
This is all a coinky dink.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a coincidence. It's right.
Yeah.
Very good. Anyone else that has, we've hit the 2-hour mark, but, and I'm not sure, you know, what your time is like, Michael, and there may be another question or two, but it's totally up to you. We hate taxing people along, and I don't like the word taxing, but I used it anyways. It's been an incredible experience for me. I came into this meeting, I started work at 4 this morning a project that I'm quite active in. I came into this meeting exhausted, and I am feeling I had 8 hours sleep. I'm not sure if anyone else has that same feeling. I mean, it's like me going for a meditation. When I meditation after a full day or a 2-hour meditation, I come out of it, I feel like I've slept all night again. And today I felt the exact same thing. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate you coming on today. And we hope to have you back. We'd like to, we're going to give you a new title though. We're going to call you the KOU. You're the Knight of Us. You're the Defender of Us. So we appreciate what you do, even though in difficult, crazy times that you're facing, knowing there's no rule of law, you're still defending people, giving hope and driving that bus to the next level. And we even if we delay the experience we are having right now in this dimension, I think it's still beneficial to us. And I do appreciate that as well. So I look forward to talking to you more about the thing you had talked about being part of. I'm very excited about doing that. And I'll do what I possibly can on it. I'm excited about life in general. And I'm a positive person that our community here is benefiting so much from UFOs to today talking about where we're at and 8 years of experiences. We are so blessed to have guests like you come on and enlighten our lives with some very, very important news and hope at the same time. I thank you for it.
You're most welcome. So here's what I would like to do for everyone is I'd like to end this. And by the way, I reiterate, I'm ready to come back anytime. You just let me know. So I would like to end this with a prayer. And this prayer is an ancient Hindu prayer. And it's called the mantra of unification. Isn't that amazing? We talked about was one. So the mantra of unification. The sons and daughters are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love which underlies the happenings of the time. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let outer cleavages be gone. Let all humanity love. Miigwech. Namaste, Wiracocha.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, see y'all soon. I love you all.
Love you too.
Okay, bye.
Wow. That is some guest. Wow. Anyways, thank you all.
And thank you, Mark.
Oh.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Mitzi. Okay, I'm ending it for everybody so that I can do the recording and stuff. Thanks, everybody.